Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze.
And a very good evening to you. Oh, there we go. I think I came out before. I had something funny happened with my computer. Luke will tell you something weird always happens when Kino is involved in doing interviews. But anyway, I probably just couldn't wait to interview, and we were waiting for this announcement for how long? Remember, all talking about it. Who is it going to be? And as you can see right there, joining me today is the principal, the director of UCT Online High School. That is Yandiswa Kakaza. What a pleasure.
Yes.
Great to have you here, man.
Thank you, Kido. Thank you so much. I'm so happy we're having this conversation, actually.
And I've got to say, I really have to say that I've been, and I'm not just saying it because you're sitting here, and anybody will tell you, I don't just say these things for the sake of saying it, but I've been a biggest fan of the work that you've been doing through Nali Bali, for example, you know, reading with understanding, etc. But we're going to get there. I think what I want to do tonight really is, and I'm big on storytelling. I want you to tell us your story so that we can understand not just the title behind, you know, the director and the principal, but the human being that has actually assumed this particular role. So, you know, I'm not going to be too formal about these things. I try my best never to be formal about these things. We're just conversational. So before we even talk about your influences that led you to, you know, down the educational path initially, tell us a little bit about who you are as a human being.
Ooh.
Yeah, I thought I'd start with an easy question first.
Who I am as a human being. Thanks for the question. So I'm many things, but, you know, I've been on this journey of understanding that we are actually not the titles or the roles we play in our society and our homes, right? Those are just, you know, assignments and things that interest us and things we have to do. But we are so much more than that as humans. So I'm such a lover of life, and I'm on this learning journey, learning about myself, learning about people, learning about places, countries, learning about, you know, some of the most interesting theories and human assumptions, you know, and just what it means to be human. So it's a different perspective. But yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, that's sort of my worldview. But I am a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. I have 3 small children that drive me crazy, but totally love them. And yeah, I wear many, many hats.
So you're like a sponge. You take in what's happening around you. And, you know, maybe if you're like me and people say, so which university did you go to? And then you say to them, well, I'm still in it. It's the university of life.
Yes.
Right? Learning each every day. But now,
absolutely.
Your connection to education. Now, I know that you obviously did your B.Ed and you taught, but preceding that, what were some of the influences that got you interested in education in the first place?
Yeah, so that story is quite a personal one, right? That when I reflect on it every time, it warms my heart, because it's almost as though our lives are configured in a way that will lead us to the destinies we need to go to, right? So my lived experience, and I mean, it was purely a lived experience, and my level of disdain, really, when I observed just how unequal the education that children across the country receive, depending on where they are born, depending on who they are, depending on how much money they have. So I was exposed from a young age to both education systems, if you were, and it caused it was disheartening. It's something that never really left me, and that's how I suppose I ended up. It was this thing I could not get used to, it wasn't something I could just look away from. And so it naturally then sort of formed part of my line of work. And I've really committed to that journey since I can remember.
Okay, so a principal, it's not like you haven't started an educational institution before, or you haven't led an educational institution before, but before all of that, you also taught. You're a teacher. Tell us a little bit about Yandiswa Takaza, the teacher. Take us through that particular journey, right? Because it's always good to have a leader in an institution that has sort of worn the t-shirt.
Yes, I love that question, because it was a long time ago when I was in the classroom. But look, I definitely was one of those cool teachers. I was funny. Kids could be themselves in my class. I still am funny. But these kids were also grade 5s, so they were young, grade 4 and 5 English teacher. But I really enjoyed it. The responsibility to be trusted with young people's future is something I did not take lightly, continue not to take lightly, because the influence that teachers have in the lives of the young children that they touch it's a lifetime, right? It stays with people forever. And so I walked in knowing that the responsibility is enormous. It's equal to that of a parent, isn't it? Right? Because you are with the kids for most of the day, and you're not just teaching content, you're instilling values. You are calling out bad behavior. You are molding character. You are doing so much more than just, these are what we need to know in English at the end of the term. So I really had a great time. I really had a good time.
And it's important, though, and you talk about calling out bad behavior, etc., and the role that you play as a teacher. But it's always important the way you do it. I'll never ever mention the teacher, but I had a challenge with mathematics. I'm more of a creative type of guy, right?
Yeah.
And not the creative accounting type. I'm just very creative. And I was told by my then teacher that, young man, you are going to amount to nothing in life. And you know what was, it's one of the few things I actually remember about school, being told by this teacher that I'm going to amount to nothing. And I was determined. Wow. I was determined to prove him wrong. So I think it's such an important position to be in, because it's not just about the content. It really is about how you mold their minds at the end of the day.
Is she alive to see how you've turned out?
I got a message from him some time back when I was, some time back, because I mentioned the teacher on air once when I was still crazy enough. And I didn't mention his name, but out of respect, but he messaged me via LinkedIn to say, listen, he apologizes and he listens regularly.
Wow.
So I've reconnected. It was wonderful, absolutely. But anyway, this is about you. It's not about me and my experience. It really is about the fact that we've got an amazing leader in the school, someone who, there are about 800 odd people online, by the way. Let's not. I don't want to scare you, but there's 871 people listening to us.
That's a lot of people.
So it's great to have all of you here. And just remember, we're not doing any Q&As. This is just a lekker chat between myself and Yandiswa. Yandiswa Takaza is the principal and director of UCT Online High School, and will be taking that steady hand to lead your child's future. And from what we've seen thus far, an absolutely amazing person. I do see questions about what we offer. We will have more information sessions around that, but we're not going to do the Q&As today. Just as a, I don't want you wasting your time on the actual thing, sending us messages and then you feel we're rude. But anyway, so you did your B.Ed, you explained to us what led you, a very personal experience that led you down the educational path. You taught at the school, but then you turned to business studies. Tell me more about that, the business side of things. I mean, you've got an MBA, I believe.
Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah. So just, explain
I'm
that.
so glad. I mean, I'm so glad I took that journey, which is unusual, right? Because when you come from a teaching background, often that's sort of the stream you die in. But I had the opportunity to start a school from the ground up, right? And part of that required astute business knowledge, right? Because it was a business unit, even though it was a school. And realizing my gaps in terms of business and accounting and all of these business terms and how to operate a business, I then went and studied my master's in business administration. What a tough experience. I mean, that stretched me beyond my imagination, but how grateful I am for the experience. I mean, the things I learned, I would have never really learned in my line of work, you know? So that experience really helped me use the same principles, business principles that are quite strong, that are quite scientifically proven. Some of them have been utilized for many years, and the principles really can be applied in social issues as well, right? Correct. And they provide us with greater impact and sustainability because they have a business lens to them. So it's I'm really grateful that I did go through my MBA for the purposes of enhancing my knowledge, but also developing better solutions, you know, that extend outside of my speciality.
So you were the founder principal of, and this was Arrow Academy, I would imagine.
Correct.
Okay, yes. So tell us a bit about what you did at Arrow.
So at Arrow, I effectively was brought on board. There was an idea, you know, to reimagine education and how education is delivered in a classroom environment in preschool and primary school with some thinking in going into high school. And it was literally just an idea on PowerPoint. And I had to basically bring it alive, you know, from everything. I mean, hiring the teachers, setting up the policies, creating an institutional culture of excellence for both teachers and learners, building a great community for parents to interact and be active part of their children's journey. You know, there was quite a lot, but fundamentally, my mandate was to flip the classroom and personalize it for the child, you know, so that we don't have this teacher who's just the sage on stage telling all the children what they need to know, but really creating this co-learning space where the teacher is a facilitator of knowledge and learning and understanding that children bring their own understanding to the table as well. And how do you mine that small knowledge and understanding that's there? So it was an amazing experience. Really, really loved it. I explored so many educational methodologies. What works, what doesn't, you know, just because it works in China or Finland doesn't mean it works in South Africa. So context. So it was really great. It was a lovely experience.
I remember, what was that address old Steve Jobs did to, I think it was one of those fancy universities, what, Stanford or something. And he was talking about how he dropped out and how he just went and sat in calligraphy classes and did this and did that. And then he, at the end of it, he said, you know what, everything I did had a purpose. And as you get older, you start connecting the dots. And you've very nicely connected a lot of the dots in your life, and it's brought you to where you are right now. And
there's nothing more humbling, Kino, than connecting the dots, because sometimes when you are in the moment, you know, it doesn't connect to anything. You are just here doing what needs to be done. But retrospectively, you see the path and the golden thread. And, you know, it's good to know that all this time you were doing that which you were supposed to be doing.
Without a doubt, even in our failures, right? But
yeah.
So the exciting, not that anything else wasn't exciting, but, you know, I spoke about Nali Bali and what you do, and I'm a huge proponent of reading with understanding. We know that, I mean, I don't know what the latest stats are, but 80% of kids in grade 4, or 70-odd%, I don't know what the latest stats are, can't read with understanding. And that is just something which is a very sad indictment, you know, but you guys were actively trying to change that through reading, the love of reading. So tell us about your Nali Bali journey.
Yeah, I mean, that work is such important work for our context, Kino, as you've articulated very well, because not being able to read is actually humiliating.
Yes.
It's humiliating. I've seen children who are supposed to be able to read not being able to read.
Yeah.
And it crushes not just their confidence, but really their spirits, right? And I think it's something we take for granted because we can read. Imagine walking around life not being able to read. It's disheartening, and children tend to think there's something wrong with them, you know, and their self-concept gets damaged heavily because of that small thing, right? So the work at Nali Bali was really about saying, even in the most remote parts of this country, we need to get books there. We may not be actively teaching the children, and we hope they are being taught at school. But if a child doesn't have enough books to read, they even if they can read, they're not going to have an interest in reading. So we needed to flood their homes and communities with books and not have an excuse that there was never a book in my home or in my library or at my grandma's house. So, and the books were not in a language I understood, which is why the books were also in all 11 official languages.
Indeed. And I'm looking at a comment. I'm not supposed to be looking at Q&A, but I am. And someone commented about how kind-hearted you are. I mean, that is something, you know what, you speak to someone sometimes and you think, can't figure this person out, but there's such a warmth around you, you know, and it's via Zoom and it's very difficult. Although I think we're all used to Zoom and trying to figure people out Zoom these days, right? But I just thought it was a comment worth mentioning. So thank you very much for that.
I appreciate that.
So let's rewind back to the day you were minding your own business and someone offered you a job at this UCT online high school. Tell me about that day.
Oh, that day, you know, I remember it so vividly because I said, it sounds like such a great idea. Good luck. Like, I can't take the job. I have been in my current role. I haven't been in my current role for too long. So no, I can't do it. Luckily, the person who called me knows my vision for education in this country. And I mean, all she had to say was, this is what you have been wanting to see. You know, how can it happen without you leading it? So it wasn't an immediate yes, but I had to be reminded of my vision for education in South Africa and what role I could play in this particular offering, given the scale and the impact that it will have, you know. So it really didn't take long for me to reflect on what this means and how it can be rolled out, and the instrumental role that I believe I will play in shaping the journey and making sure that I'm all about quality education, you know, so I would not want to be a part of something that shortchanges people, nor would I want to be part of something that excludes minority. Yeah. So I've got my work cut out for me from that perspective.
Let's talk a little bit about those values in more detail and how you feel that intertwines with the offering as you see it from UCT Online High School. Just let's go into a little bit more detail about that. I think it's really valuable to do that.
No, certainly. So, I mean, UCT Online High School is actually quite an affordable private school, right? It is. I mean, parents know this because we know how the fees add up. We know how the uniform, the outings, the this, the that, the transport, the whatevers. We know how all of that adds up to way more than 2,095 rands a month. But even within that, we've been getting a lot of media pushback around our fees, claiming that our fees exclude a huge chunk of our society, which is true, right? That fee point is not accessible to most South Africans, which is why we have that freemium option. And I really think people don't understand that it's the exact same curriculum that would help children who can't afford, that they can actually use as a study guide of sorts. And even within that, the unbundling of the services that will come with this kind of offering, where children can take a particular subject with UCT Online High School and, combine it with the rest of their subjects at school. So there are many ways in which the fees will try to be structured to accommodate everyone. But even then, we are really servicing a huge market that is not receiving as great an education as they deserve.
But Yandiswa, I always say to people, and I've heard all sorts of people, professors and whoever, having their say, and they're entitled to it. But one cannot solve a problem of that magnitude, which has been playing out in this country forever in one high school, right? You speak of quality education. The 1 to 44, 1 to 40 odd ratio needs to be maintained. The fact that we are able to make that curriculum freely available, as you point out, the fact that we've got the micro schools where people who live in unsavory conditions, for example, kids can actually go out and learn in a place that's safe and guided as well. And then we've got the sponsors, and we continue working on those sponsorships, right, where we try and create better access to education. But for me, and I just want to get your thoughts on this, this is about proving a model that can be replicated using networks of influence, capital, etc., to make sure that this type of education could be something, whether you're sitting in the ruralist part of South Africa or anywhere else, you can get access to that education. But you have to start somewhere with proving the concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it. It's new, it's audacious, it's bold, and it's because people are not used to a new modality of delivering basic education that they are risk averse. They're not quite sure if it's going to work out. But if we look at the world, I mean, globally, and thank God COVID happened and taught us what is possible. But this solution is exactly that. We're not building enough schools quickly enough at the rate of our population growth. We are South Africa's population is relatively young. And what's the quickest way to educate millions of people, especially because in South Africa, we've got an aging teacher population that will be retiring, that keeps retiring in chunks every year, and young people are not motivated to go into teaching. So how do we solve for that teaching gap, which is going to become even more and more problematic over time? And great teachers gravitate towards good schools in cities. So we have a chunk of people who keep getting poor educators or underqualified educators into their schools. And this is really just to say there is a way in which this can be solved. And it's going to take time for South Africans, for the general population to get on with it, right? Because the world has moved. We know that there's so many jobs, the gig economy is growing, everything is happening online. People are reporting to their managers who are sitting in Geneva. You need to navigate and be able to be comfortable and work online, right? So already our learners will be very familiar with those mechanics. It's not something they're going to have to learn when they start university or when they start the world of work. They would have been doing it for so long, it will be second nature.
Exactly. And I mean, if we look at how much money, I think we probably, and this is not 100% accurate, I don't know what the actual number is, but we do spend more money per capita on education than a lot of other countries around the world. Imagine some of that can be legally redistributed to innovations.
Yeah.
Access to internet. And I mean, the other thing I see here as well, Yandiswa, is, you know, a lot of knowledge workers happen to be in that space. People are wanting to move out the cities, and they don't mind moving to more remote areas. They're taking their skills there. If we can create a school, because the only thing that would keep me from going to a quieter part of the world is access to good education for my child. So the ramifications of taking this and expanding it is almost endless.
It's amazing. It's unthinkable what can be done, right? We're no longer stuck or stationed in places. We can be anywhere and work. We can be anywhere and learn. You can be a professional musician or a soccer star or whatever, and still, you know, put your timetable together in a way that accommodates your professional life or your creative life. So the opportunities are really just endless.
So now I'm not going to ask you any questions. I really enjoyed the chat. I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to. If you're not comfortable with it, that's cool. If you've just got a short message, you've got a lot of, I know Dylan's probably online, right? You heard about Dylan. Dylan, are you there? I think you're going to have to reveal yourself, Dylan. Tell us whether you're there. Dylan is on every one of these, and he's the one who asked me to phone his parents to just convince them that he needs to be at UCT online high schools. But Dylan's always here. So you've got Dylan, and you've got a lot of parents and probably a lot of other students as well. Just some final words from you to the family. Because that's what we are.
No, certainly. To Dylan, firstly, I heard a lot about you, Dylan. I do hope to see you at UCT Online High School. But really, to the parents and to the learners, we are so excited. And we're really grateful that you've taken the brave step, because I do think it's brave. It's something new. It's our first cohort, and you're trusting that it will go well. And you're trusting us with your children and with your children's futures, something I personally don't take for granted. So we're really grateful for that. But we also know that it's going to really change the trajectory of your children's lives significantly and positively. The plan is to see these young people thrive across the globe. I often get the question, oh, but will they get automatic access to UCT? And my response is always that I hope to see them at Harvard, at Oxford, at Stanford. I hope to see them elsewhere, actually. And UCT is already a top university in Africa. Why would we want them at UCT anyway, right? But I have a vision of the kind of child that will go through this. And for me, their future is amazing, right? It is going to change history. It is going to make history. I'm looking forward to the fun, to the excitement. I think there's so much more to come. It's going to be an amazing experience. And I do know that a lot of the parents are probably worried about social interaction and how will kids form those skills. And I do want to mention, particularly to parents, that part of being human is being connected, right? Part of being human is connecting with other humans and interacting and getting your heart broken and staying loyal to your friends and, keeping secrets and all of those things. So those are still very important elements of ushering in young people into the world. Generally, they're going to always deal with people. So we will need your support in terms of making sure we collectively organize those meetups, we collectively organize, we know where the students are based, we know who's where and who's close to who. It's going to be important for us to make sure that they get to connect in person as often as possible. So parent involvement is also going to be crucial because it's going to help us with some of the elements required to build character beyond just the academics. I'm not worried about the academics. I think we've got a very strong curriculum, a very strong support team, and that will be taken care of. But the part of molding the young people is where parents need to get involved as well.
And some of your children might not even go directly to university. They might end up being entrepreneurs and
exactly
doing lifelong learning, for example. So
yeah,
so many ways. I mean, this is a wonderful world we live in. COVID has brought us into it kicking and screaming, and we all can understand why, the lessons that it's taught us are indeed so pertinent. Yandiswa, thank you so much. You're amazing. I look forward to working with you. I can't wait for those fireside chats.
I can't wait.
Fun.
I can't wait. Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure. And to all of you, all 869 of you now, for joining us. I really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful evening. And this is only beginning. It's going to get a lot better. Have a good one too.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody. Bye-bye.